Hello and welcome to the Game Mess Game Club. We are talking about our first game of 2024. It is Vanquish by Platinum Games, released in 2010, originally for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. I didn't realize the Windows port didn't even come out until 2017. That's actually pretty interesting. This is Mike Minotti from the Game Mess. I got a bunch of our fellow game clubbers over here to talk about this one with me. Not the first Platinum Games we title we have discussed. We have done Metal Gear Rising Revengeance before. This is pretty different from your typical Platinum Games title. I think most people associate them with third-person melee action games like your Bayonettas, like your Metal Gear Risings, like your Near Automatas. This is a third person cover shooter, and yet isn't necessarily just by the numbers one of those. So, I guess first question for everybody here is if they were familiar with Vanquish, if they had played it before, or if this was their first time. This was a game that has been on my backlog for a very long time. I think there was a physical copy of it in the house at some point. I forget if I bought it cheap or if somebody else in my family had it, but I would always like open up my little cabinet and look at all the games to play, and I look at Vanquish like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play that someday, and then just never did. How about you, Sean?
So I am familiar with Vanquish from back in the day, back on the PS3, and to get into it a little, that's actually why I won't be talking too much tonight. I'm gonna let everyone else sort of take it from here, despite the fact that I am a kind of the platinum guy. I'm a big fan of Bayonetta, big fan of Nier Automata, love Metal Gear Rising, one of my top 5 games of all time. But Vanquish never really clicked with me. I didn't like it too much back in the day. And then I've been very busy. To date the podcast a little bit, we're recording here at the beginning of February 2024. And if you look at a calendar, boy, there were a lot of games coming out then, weren't there? So I didn't quite have the time to squeeze in a full playthrough of this, but I did fire it up a little bit. I'm like, are my feelings still the same on this? Am I still like not really into the formula that they were going for here? This sort of third person cover shooter sort of gameplay. And yeah, I wasn't really feeling it. And so, but to be fair to the game, I think I'm gonna let everyone else share their thoughts more so than myself, since it seems like we have everyone who just maybe did a first playthrough or have played it multiple times now. I'm gonna let them talk about it from here.
Adam GC, go ahead.
Yeah, I have never. This is my first time playing Vanquish. I don't remember even hearing about Vanquish until that 2-pack came out a few years ago with Bayonetta. Um, so yeah, this is totally new to me. I've played some Platinum games. I was actually just playing Bayonetta 3 when we did the poll for this one. So I was primed. And sorry, Sean, I got to hard disagree with you. This game kicks ass. This game is so good. I love every bit of it. It is a video game ass video game. It is dumb as hell, and I love it.
Domino Crossing.
Yeah, so I vaguely remember hearing about this game in 2010. I might have even heard about it on G4. Was G4 still around in 2010, or was that after the first shutdown? I can't remember. But I
They
remember,
may have been around 2010. I bet they were still around at that point. Maybe not though.
yeah, it's hard to remember. This was back in my high school days, but yeah, I vaguely remember hearing about the game, and then I just kind of forgot about it. And then, of course, the remasters came out, and that's when it really got on my radar again. Waited for a nice sale, got the double pack with the Bayonetta remaster for $20, and it's just been kind of, collecting dust in my backlog. And this has been a good time to finally have an excuse to play it. And unfortunately, I did it right before the Prince of Persia game, which I did enjoy substantially more than this. That being said, though, I think it's a fine game. I for what it is, I think Adam Giese, Adam really summed it up. It is a video game as hell video game. It's dumb. It's fully aware of it, and it lets you know about that in the first minute or so. And if you're willing to meet the game on those terms, I think you're gonna get something out of it at least.
My fellow Kodo, Shoji Kodo.
Yeah, this is the first time that I played it, and I do remember it from way back in the day. I just remember, you know, seeing visuals of it and just like the power sliding on the knees and everything, I was like, oh, that looks really cool. But I never really wanted to buy it for full price. And then years ago, like I can't remember how long ago now, it came out or it was included in like games with gold for Xbox, and I picked it up then, and it's been on my backlog ever since. So I'm happy we actually got a chance to jump in and play it for this. Um, that said, I I think it was fine. It was all right. There are some aspects that I definitely enjoyed, others not so much. Even though this was likely developed alongside um, Revengeance, in a sense, I almost feel like this crawled so that game could walk and run. But yeah, overall, I think it was all right.
Okay, I'm hearing a few cooler responses than maybe I was anticipating. Interesting. Inufe, go ahead.
So I bought this game day one when it came out, 2010, and I loved it then. I bought the double pack when that came out with Bayonetta, and then I bought the Steam port. So technically, I think I own it 3 times. Um, but yeah, I love this game probably more than most other people have talked about it. It was Shinji Mikami's last game at Platinum before he went off and made Tango GameWorks. So that was probably the whole reason that I was so excited when it came out. Because I think was this the only one he made at Platinum when he was there? He was not at Platinum for a long time before he left. So that was probably the whole reason that I was so excited because he was coming. I was host.
Yeah,
Uh,
now I'm
yeah.
curious and looking. It looks like this is the only game that he, directed while at Platinum. That is right. Um, so yeah, like I said, this was the first time I played it. I had a lot of fun with it. I was kind of in the mood, I think, for just like a high octane third person shooter, and it really is one of those. And it's neat because it's clearly influenced by the games like that at that time. Gears of War being the obvious one here, but it is doing a lot of its own things. It definitely has that platinum sort of over the top action focused flavor to it. Just a really fast pace. And yeah, that power sliding mechanic is kind of the big deal here. I think that's what gives this game so much of its identity. That you have this really fast paced sliding move that lets you move around the battlefield insanely quickly. So that yeah, cover is important in this game. You still need to use it sometimes, but you're a lot more mobile than that. It's almost kind of like Doom 2016 before Doom 2016. Not quite, but at a time where all the shooters were about pure cover and popping out of cover, and that was kind of the extent of it. It is fun in this game that you are moving around a lot. So I guess I wonder if anybody else has anything that they want to say about the movement, because that is a big part of what's fun here. Go ahead, Adam GC.
Yeah, in defense of the cover, because I also started out like, oh, I am stuck in cover. This is a platinum game. I want to be out fighting these guys and punching them in the face. Um, but in addition to the power slide, the other really interesting mechanic is this stamina bar that everything uses. Like your weapons use it. The power slide uses it. It's used for bullet time. So once that finally clicked, where I can like master, okay, I can use this to go out, I can slide here, I can slow down here, I can shoot with this weapon with the remaining stamina, I can let it recharge, then I can move back to a different weapon. Once that started to click, I was finally like coming out of cover more, and I really started to really have fun with the movement and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. Talk about that stamina. Even like your melee attack uses all the stamina, and it to me it's kind of a deterrent. Like, hey, don't use that. Actually, you should be shooting. You should be moving around. I know that you probably think of us as people making these melee combat games. Not this time. Yes, you have that button, but you probably shouldn't push it if you can help yourself. Go ahead, Shoji Koto.
Yeah, the movement is definitely the highlight of this game for me. Just trying to strategically go from sliding around, hiding behind cover to let your stamina recharge, and then just mixing the power slide along with the slowdown bullet time was super satisfying, especially when you're like dodging around to certain critical points on bosses and things like that. It felt really smooth and really satisfying in that regard.
And I was also kind of impressed with the weapon upgrade system, which I thought was interesting. Where, yeah, sometimes enemies will just drop this power up that upgrades your weapon a little bit, whichever one you have equipped at that time. But also like that if you're full on ammo on a specific weapon, then if you pick up that weapon again, then it actually just works as an upgrade. Also, it also kind of ties into your punishment for death because you have infinite lives, like most games at this point already. But when you die, you do lose, a level on maybe one of your guns. I wasn't sure exactly how that works, but I thought that was a pretty cool system. And I like for me, I was basically like, okay, I'm gonna keep these two guns that I know I like around all the time and really worry about upgrading them. And then I have a third slot that can kind of be my rotation slot. I can kind of, whatever I can pick up or want to use or whatever's good for the situation I'm going to put in there. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, just to build on that, I love that every little throwaway thing you do in this game like rewards you. Like if you revive an ally, here's some ammo. If you find ammo but it's full, oh, it's an upgrade now. Like these are just would be nothing things in any other game, but they figure out a way to just like make it worthwhile to pick up everything and do everything.
Yeah, that's right. And then the pacing is an awesome thing here. Now, I guess the downside is that it's short. It's like a 4-hour game, but it is a nonstop 4 hours. Even if when it cuts away for like some story sequence or a cutscene, they are not very long. They're not very complicated. You are going from fight to set piece to fight, and there are some cool moments. There's a kind of like you're on this tram sequence, and some of the other trams are even kind of like above you, going around this tube. That was an awesome moment. Probably my favorite part of the game. But there's all sorts of stuff with buildings falling over. You're fighting some absolutely huge enemies. So I am curious to hear what people think about things like the pacing or maybe the length of the game. If that was a problem for you, it's hard. It's easy to say it's not a problem now because I bought this game on a Steam sale and I don't care if a game's 4 hours. If I bought this on my Xbox 360 and it was just a 4-hour game with no online mode, maybe that rubbed people the wrong way back then. I guess I'm sure that's what it got dinged for a bit in reviews at the time. Go ahead, Inufe.
Yeah, like I said, I bought it day one. Was a little disappointed that you can kind of run through in about 4 hours or a little less. But in subsequent playthroughs, I mean, the game's 100% designed to be played through on multiple difficulties once you start figuring out the sliding mechanic and how you kind of don't need to stay in cover most of the time until you need to get your stuff on cooldown. But the length, I think, was a huge issue and why it got dinged, and I think why it sits at like a high 60s or low 70s on Metacritic. I can't remember what it's at.
Yeah.
But that was, yeah, but it is 100% designed to just be played through multiple. Um, Also, I hope we don't go the entire time, but this might be the only video game that I know outside of Metal Gear that has a dedicated smoking button.
There is definitely some Metal Gear vibes here, and it is funny that the player character here, Sam, is pretty much just in Revengeance. That's funny. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I just discovered that button last night when I went back to play it. That's pretty good. Completely agree. I love the game length here. I love that it's all combat. Coming right off of Bayonetta 3, which is a game that has you do 800 things that are not fighting as Bayonetta. This was just like sweet relief coming off of that. It's like, yes, I can just do combat for 7 hours and it's beautiful.
Go ahead, Doominal.
Yeah, so overall, I thought the pacing was fine for the most part. Like definitely, like if you are someone that paid full price for it and you do get a lot out of it, like it's definitely meant to be replayed. And then if you're someone, you or me, Mike, where we bought it on sale, then it's like okay, whatever, we got our $10 worth out of it for like a single playthrough. Probably my only critique with the pacing is in regard to the cutscenes that I think it's not so much the length of them, it's that I feel like they pop up a little bit too much during the playthrough, and I wish there was, a bit more extended sequences of pure gameplay. And I know that, that was just more of a trend of that era, that late 2010s era where like games were like really starting to enter their quote unquote cinematic era, but especially for a game like this where like who gives a shit about the story? Like I kind of just wish that they eased up on the cutscenes a little bit. Although at the same time, I can't get mad about Steve Bloom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do want to talk about the story a little bit, but Shoji Koto, you go ahead first.
Yeah, the length I thought was good. I was looking for a short game, so I feel like it really worked out. But I also didn't pay full price for this back when it launched, so I might have felt different in that regard if I did do that. Regarding the pacing, one of the minor things that I did have an issue with, the cutscenes generally were okay. You know, there were a lot of them. I didn't like the forced walking sections. I felt like that really bogged things down if I was in between certain levels and, I'm just constantly running, going. And then, you get stuck and slowed down where they're forcing you to walk through a certain section while there's more or less useless dialogue that happens. It's like, man, I really don't care about this. I just want to get to the next section and keep going. So those forced slowdowns really ended up bothering me.
And that is straight again from the Gears of War playbook, and a lot of video games were doing that this time, where it's like there's dialogue going on, usually radio chatter, and you can still walk. Revengeance does it also. Yeah, games love that shit for a while there for some reason. Go ahead, Adam.
I feel like I have a much different attitude towards game length these days than I would have probably when this game came out, where I would have been much more concerned about having a longer game. Whereas now I am much more concerned with fun per minute value of my game.
Yeah, I mean, I had to play plenty of long games, right? So yeah, you need to play a game in 4 hours and have a complete experience. That's actually pretty neat, actually. But yeah, let's talk about the story here, because it's like both really interesting and not. Like, it starts kind of bizarrely with this giant attack on San Francisco, which is only actually mildly important. Hillary Clinton's there. She gets to be president in this video game, at least. I overall, I'm pretty good with like all the goofy stuff. That's fine. Yeah, some of the characters are fun. I do like Sam. I could do with less of the military hoorah stuff. For a lot of the game, you are following this kind of military general or captain and his troops. So it is, a lot of military blah blah speak that is just kind of grating to my ears a lot of the time. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to hear what other people do think about things like the story, the dialogue, the characters. Also, that military guy, I can't remember his name. There's that weird moment at the end where like he kills that your buddy, that scientist guy. Then you fight him, and he's been sort of making these selfish decisions the entire game that's killing people and stuff. Then the last moment, he has a change of heart, and when he does die, Sam seems actually pretty sad about it, which was, I don't know, a little weird to me. But go ahead, Doobidle.
Yeah, I could not tell you what this game's story is. Like, if you put a gun to my head, like, it's over. The only, again, even the military guy, like, again, can't remember his name. All I can remember is Steve Blum voiced him because his voice is just too iconic. And also the main villain, the Russian guy, probably the best part of the story is the very first shot you see of him in the suit. They zoom in on his gigantic bulge. I laughed so hard during that cutscene, and then the final cutscene, they zoom in on his cake too. So clearly, Shinji Mikami has his priorities straight. So shout out to you. Obviously the story is not good, but again, for what it is, like if you're willing to accept it for what it is, it can be pretty entertaining in small bites.
Yeah. Oh, Jarek, thank you for subscribing. And sorry, everybody, I forgot to turn off my alert box during the middle of this. But thank you again, Jarek, for 6 months. Really appreciate that. I wonder if I could recap the story on my own. I think that the Russians are in league with the U.S. to manufacture a war to boost the economy. But the Russians are also maybe overplaying their hand a bit too much and attacked San Francisco, even though the U.S. didn't really know about that. But the U.S. was kind of let it slide anyways. And then Sam's friend, who's a scientist, got kidnapped by the Russians. The U.S. wanted him to die. For some reason, I think because war, and then, but Sam's not about that. But he tries to kill the Russian and then doesn't, but escapes. So go ahead, Adam. You might know better than me. How did I do?
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
I'm with Duminol. This is in one ear and out the other, just like I like it with my Platinum games.
Yeah, I guess, is there a Platinum game that's really super well known for its story? Even Revengeance, it has pretty good characters, right? I don't know about the story, like Bayonetta.
Whoa,
Again,
come
fun
on.
characters. The story, there we go.
Memes, the
There's,
DNA of the soul, Mike.
I do like when they say the word memes. Sure. Hey, probably one of their better stories, I guess we could say.
Oh yeah, the
or for
only one
vengeance.
really worth talking about. Let's be real.
Right. But I mean, there's some Platinum games where, like, even though I'm enjoying the combat, I find the story so kind of abrasive or annoying. Astral Chain was kind of the poster child of that for me, where I was liking that game, and it wasn't exactly military hoorah; it was police hoorah stuff. But again, I was just over that. Very quick.
I almost forgot. This is cheating because they didn't do the story really, but Nier Automata, obviously.
Yeah, you're right. Nier is definitely.
But they were
story.
gameplay on that, so yeah, that would be cheating. But yeah,
You're right for sure.
Point holds.
Shoji Koda, go ahead.
Yeah, like most others, the story was just kind of in one ear out the other. I just wanted to point out one specific thing. Like, throughout the entire game, there was that one military dude who just had no disregard for all of the people in the army or whatever. And there was like that one section where he was about to close this gate and leave a bunch of dudes behind, and Sam was just like, "No, you can't do it." You ran back to save him. And then you help like this one final dude get through the gate right before it closes, and then right after you do it, he just gets sniped and killed. And you're like, what was that for? I laughed so hard when he got domed right after that whole cutscene and that whole section, all because you wanted to save those guys. Like, stuff like that was funny, but like the overall story, yeah, I'm not remembering a ton of it.
I think that's Shinji Mikami trying to have his Lawrence of Arabia moment. Maybe, I don't know. Inufe, go ahead.
Yeah, the story is Platinum Fair. I think they probably wrote it in an afternoon. And it's just kind of a thing to get you from one place to the other. And a lot of it's just like, oh, we got to save all the Marines, and everybody kind of just spoiler dies. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially, and it clearly seems like at the very end they were trying to leave it open for a sequel, but that clearly never happened because the game sold pretty poorly for them. So.
Yeah, we have sequel bait at the end. Not the most disappointing sequel bait that's never been fulfilled. That still goes to the live action Mario movie. But yeah, it is a shame we never got a sequel here. Go ahead, Gerber.
Yeah, well, I keep thinking, as far as I understand the plot, it's not the US that are in league with Russians. It's just not Hillary Clinton that's in league with the Russians. And no one else knows about this very important detail.
It's just Hillary Clinton. And how wild is it at the end when Hillary Clinton shoots herself in this video game? I could do nothing but actually kind of just freak out and laugh. Oh my god, it was actually almost off-putting to see it. It was like awkward. Like, oh, they're making their Hillary Clinton character just shoot herself, and I thought it would like cut away. No, you saw some blood and stuff. Good on them. It was wild. We got a few text submissions from people in the community who couldn't be here. Let's read a couple of these, see if we got something else we can pull from here. Benji Bop or Boppo Bop to see Bopvin Rebop says they just don't make games like this anymore. A game that is not only just as long as a summer blockbuster, but has the same exact plot as one too. That's a compliment. The gameplay is super fluid and diverse enough to keep it interesting. Sliding is top tier, and the game accomplishes its goals without overstaying its welcome. What a fun-ass game. I need a cigarette. I get that is another benefit of that short length, right? Is that the game doesn't wear thin. It's it does leave you wanting more, if anything. And if I bought this game back in the day, I do think I would be somebody who would play it multiple times, do harder difficulties, maybe see if I can get some trophies, things like that. Jay Sherrill says, initially, this game reminded me a lot of Metal Gear Rising Revengeance in tone and overall feel. Combat is obviously very different, but this feels like a sequel or prequel in a lot of ways. Obviously, sharing a developer contributed to this. I enjoyed the movement during combat, but probably did not take advantage of it as much as I should have. I imagine harder difficulties would have been needed, but I really only used it a couple of the harder bosses. The combat itself was fun, but started to get a bit old towards the end of the game. The short length of the game helped alleviate the issue, but I'm sure cost at some points when it came out. Oh, it definitely did. The highlight of the game was the over-the-top cutscenes, dialogue, and humor, and I found myself looking forward to getting through a combat section to get to those. Overall, I enjoy my time with Vanquish. but I think it was a somewhat forgettable experience. In 5 years, I'm not sure I will remember much of this game, aside from the president shooting herself in the head at the very end. How about that? Bringing it right back there. And then Diogo said, can't make the discussion today, so here are some top line thoughts. It's crazy to think this was only the third title by Platinum after Mad World and Bayonetta. I think you can tell it was developed alongside those two games. It feels like the people behind all those three games were instructed to make the coolest game they could think of, and it reflected in three very distinct approaches, but with similar philosophies. Moment to moment gameplay feels really good and juicy, with obvious emphasis on the movement slash sliding and the weight of the weaponry. However, I agree with the sentiment that in some hours it starts to feel somewhat stale. There is weapon variety, but not too much of it. I found myself resorting to 2 or 3 weapons. I'd keep upgrading, repeating the same strategies. Surprised me that, unlike other Platinum games, you don't really have any sort of way to upgrade your moveset with new combos or abilities, as I think something within these lines would have helped greatly in keeping the combat fresh. I also feel like that while the gameplay mechanics make you feel badass by keep pushing forward and being aggressive with enemies, you often get punished by trying to look cool. This led me to play Vanquish more like a regular shooter, seeking cover and methodically taking out enemies. Ending was surprisingly bold, excuse me. I do appreciate when a game feels confidence in trying to go against the norm and leave matters unresolved, or the player with a feeling that they couldn't save the world. Overall, good experience, runs great in the Steam Deck, but it feels likely my least favorite of the Platinum Games titles that I have played. I think the weapon variety thing is interesting because there are a lot of weapons. It's not like a Ratchet and Clank where you have a lot of crazy weapons per se. You have shotguns, you have you have a sniper rifle, different kind of automatic rifles. There was that one kind of laser beam cannon that did use your stamina instead of bullets, and I actually did like that. When it was fully upgraded, it could do a lot of damage. So I found myself doing that. I don't know if people have any other thoughts on the weaponry. There was a couple grenades that I probably wasn't using as much as I should have, stuff like that. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I kind of like that it was just you find your guns that you like and you rock with them for the game. On that point, I think the last person there brought up that there was no like upgrades or new abilities. I also loved that. I don't hate a skill tree, but sometimes it's really nice to just have here's your one move set, and you have to get better at it throughout the course of the game. We're not going to give you new abilities or upgrades.
I agree with you, Adam. Actually, I was thinking that when I read that. I don't need a skill tree or like an upgrade system like that in every game. Sometimes it is fun when a game kind of gives you most of your tools, anyways, at the very beginning. Also, I think it would have maybe hurt the pace of this game, right? Because if you're pausing and constantly going into menus and looking at skill trees, it can get a little tiresome after a while. Go ahead, Inufe.
Yeah, I think the skill tree thing, it was kind of 2010 before every game got a skill tree, so it was kind of almost the norm for to not have a skill tree back then. Somebody in the tech submission said that this game was like a Hollywood blockbuster in length, and if anyone's seen the Rise of the Beasts Transformers movie,
I did.
uh, the spoilers at the end when he gets Mirage, someone clearly likes Vanquish because he kind of gets Sam's moveset as he slides on his knees all over the battlefield.
Man, he does.
So yeah, I would feel like I was the only person in the movie theater that recognized that, but I was incredibly excited when I saw that. But in terms of the guns, yeah, I think the only one that's really necessary is the anti-armor pistol. For later in the game when all the armor enemies start showing up in waves. But other than that, yeah, they're kind of all a little bit interchangeable.
Yeah, and as good as that gun is, I had a hard time ever having a whole lot of ammo for it, but maybe it's because I wasn't upgrading that one enough. It would sort of go into my rotation slot. My mains were whatever the standard assault rifle was. I would usually keep that one because it was always easy to find a ton of ammo for it. And again, that kind of laser focused weapon. Yeah. Gerbear, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just on the upgrade system. I just wish there was a way to lock in some of your upgrades once you've got them, because once you have a weapon, you really do tend to stick to it, and you'd like to experiment, but it can almost punish you by going to a different weapon because you're downgrading in a way.
Yeah, I guess I can understand that. I understand that. I also kind of like the whole say sometimes you're stuck with this weapon. You haven't upgraded as much, but it'll be okay. Sometimes I wonder just you get some idea of what the upgrades are doing. Like it says increased damage, or a lot of times it's increased ammo. I get a feeling that the upgrades aren't necessarily crazy because sometimes I would pick up like, the low level sniper rifle and it would still, kill the grunts in basically one hit for the most part. Go ahead, Adam.
I got so confused by what each upgrade meant because there was just like
Yeah.
this ever stacking like badges thing you would get on each of them that seemed to have no end. And yeah, it's very unclear what they're doing.
Um, how about bosses and just enemy variety in general? It's not a crazy amount of enemy variety. Didn't really bug me because everything was pretty fun to beat, and there was a lot of these kind of I don't know, bosses is the word, but like these kind of higher end enemies that would pop up every once in a while that were always really fun to fight. Actually, and these things would usually have weak points. You would even sometimes have to parry them, and then a quick time event because it's 2010. Of course, there are quick time events. But yeah, what do people think about enemies and bosses? Go ahead, Duminal.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about like the generic enemies. I think you summed it up pretty much there. I think the bosses are actually like probably the highlight of this game for me. I really like, the sense of scale and like, it kind of reminds me, as a one of the resident Metroid fans here of the Quadraxis fight from Prime 2 where you're kind of slowly the whole boss fight is you basically slowly taking apart this giant hulking piece of machinery until the very end. And that's kind of what, a lot of these big kind of Kaizu robo fights reminded me of. And I also like that, you would see these recurring and you would think like, oh, well, I defeated it last time. I know where its weak point is, but then it would change on you like when you face it the second time and you have to use a completely new set of methods to take it out, or it'll transform into something completely different in like its second or even its third phase. And so I really like, that variety and the sense of surprise that the bosses gave.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Go ahead, Adam.
Shout out to that one recurring boss that's very Zelda like. I'm just a little guy surrounded by bubbles or
Yes,
whatever, and you have to take all these out to get to me.
I did like that thing, and I think my beam weapon, whatever it was usually pretty good at that. I think like the actual bosses were good. I don't necessarily remember a ton of them. Like at the end of the game, you fight kind of the main bad guy, and there's two of them, and neither of them are really him. But it was a fun enough fight. Fighting your military buddy was fine. It was kind of a chase thing. It was okay, but it's not like Metal Gear. It's not like Revengeance in terms of boss quality. But as we're maybe wrapping up here, I guess uh, kind of would like to hear everybody maybe bring up final thoughts or anything else that they do want to say about this game, and maybe where it fits in terms of your ranking of platinum games that you have experienced. I certainly have not played all of them. It's not my favorite one. Revengeance probably is. I probably do like near Automata more than this. I don't know. Maybe I'll get in trouble for saying that I like this more than Bayonetta. To be honest, I like it more than Star Fox Zero, even though I'm a Star Fox Zero
Boo!
defender. But no, I had a lot of fun with this game. But I'll do final thoughts after everybody else gets a chance. But Sean, go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, this game I think is a good example of I'm glad it exists type of thing. This is one of those overall smaller projects that I can tell a team that they put their all into for the time that they were working on it, and their end result is a short, but like I said, not for me, but for those who play it, generally speaking, like they think it's a very fun project, and I think it's cool when something like that comes out when this game very clearly, like we said, inspired by Gears of War, and it's sort of the hyperactive Platinum Games over the top anime version of that. But it's cool that this kind of experience can exist. And, even if it got overlooked back in the day, I think it's found an audience nowadays of people who hold it up sort of as one of those hidden gem sort of things like, hey, go back and play this. And I think a decent amount of Platinum's library actually kind of is like that nowadays. Same with Mad World and, some of the other smaller stuff that they've done. I think even like to an extent, Star Fox Zero, which people are slowly coming around on, like, hey, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. It's just people at the time really didn't like the Wii U, so they kind of dumped out for those reasons. But yeah, I think it's fun that this brand of gameplay and style and everything can be brought to a broader audience, and I'm glad that it seems like on the whole people here liked it tonight. So that's always good to hear.
Go ahead, Adam.
I definitely like this better than Bayonetta 3. I do not know if I am brave enough to say I like it better than Bayonetta 1 or 2, but I could change on that. This game is really good.
Duminal, go ahead.
Yeah, so of the Platinum games, I've only played this and the first two Bayonettas. Bayonetta 2 is probably my favorite, but I actually think I'd put it over Bayonetta 1. I don't know if that's a spicy take or not, but I'll happily pull that trigger. As
Double
for if it's
trigger.
worth it, that honestly that's on my backlog. I still need to play that. But yeah, honestly, like, despite our wide range of opinions, some people here absolutely love this game, some people are more mild on it, like myself or Nick. Or I mean Turbo, might be. Yeah, I feel like no one absolutely hated this game, and again, in the weeks leading up to this, I was posting all sorts of sales of this game, like on sale for $6. I think $6 is, you're gonna have a fun time regardless, where you stand on it.
Hey, Matt, welcome. Welcome to the end.
Yeah, I made it just in time to give a quick overview of opinion. Is that all right?
Sounds fantastic. Go ahead.
Perfect. I really love Vanquish. I play it probably once every couple years. I just love sliding around. The game's juicy, and it's a short, quick romp. It's very much a fun game.
It definitely is. And it's like, yeah, it's the kind of game where I can imagine like 5, 10 years. Who knows? I could easily play this again and it'll still feel pretty fresh. Go ahead, Inufe.
Yeah, I love Vanquish. But I think it's probably towards Shinji Mikami's like bottom third of his directorial. Actually, what's worse is Piano 3. Um, but that's just because his kind of directorial resume is pretty impressive. So, but in terms of platinum games, I think it's probably right there, and outside of the licensed garbage that they dumped out there for a while, is probably right in the middle. Um, but yeah, I mean, I kind of love the game. It's so short that you can kind of just blast through it in an afternoon. So subsequent replays are just so much fun. It's also an incredible Steam Deck game, especially on Steam Deck OLED, where you can run it at 90 frames a second, like no sweat, and kind of blast through it. But I'll probably see myself replaying it again in a couple more years.
Yeah, it's probably better than their Legend of Korra and TMNT games. Maybe not necessarily better than Transformers Devastation, which was kind of sick, but good luck playing that game these days. Let's see. Gerbear, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's just I did play it back when it came out on the 360, and obviously I played it wrong because I remember it being a lot harder then, and I haven't got better at games since then. So I think it's just so going back to the part of the game worked out well for me, anyways, because I played it the way it was meant to be played, I guess, and it was a lot easier and just a better experience this time around.
Shoji Kodo, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say for me, just in regards to other platinum games that I've played, this is definitely around like the middle or lower half. Definitely some fun aspects. I love the combat and the movement and kind of those mechanics and all that. Um, but yeah, and I haven't played a ton of platinum games, but at least of the ones that I've played, this is definitely on the lower end, I'd say.
I mean, it's no Babylon's Fall, that's for sure. But then again, what is? What is? Yeah, this game was a lot of fun. I'm really glad that I finally was able to play through it. It's funny because this game was sort of almost instantly a hidden gem or underappreciated game, right? And I think that's going to be its status for pretty much the rest of the time. It's always going to get brought up as a game that hey, more people should play that, check it out because it's a lot of fun. Yeah, that was our discussion on Vanquish. We are doing Ghost Trick Phantom Detective right now. We'll be doing discussion on that in about a month or so, maybe at the end of this month, maybe beginning of next month. But yes, so look forward to that. Thank you to everybody who contributed to the Game Mess Game Club in this month, and thank you to everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.